Okay, let's give you guys some practice. So find the limit of this as x heads towards pi over 2. So press pause and have a go. Okay, so to do this, I hope you didn't dwell on this for too long, because when it comes to limits, you should always check for two things first. Check that nothing breaks down. So let's try and do that. So if you look at the sine graph. Sine graph looks like this. This is 2 pi, this is pi, and our pi over 2 is right here. Pi over 2, in our case it's 1. And then if you look at cos looks like this. 2 pi, pi, and this is our pi over 2 here. Pi over 2. So pi over 2 is 0. So you've got 1 plus this thing here would be 1. And then cos of pi over 2 would be 0. So the first thing you should do is check that nothing breaks down. In our case, it does break down. But sometimes you get lucky and get something like this. Just imagine you get 1 plus 1. And just imagine this thing here heads towards, let's just say 3. So here you've got 2 over 3. So nothing breaks down. If this is a 3, then you don't need to do any work because nothing breaks down. In our case, it does break down. It's 0. But then the second thing you should look for is this thing here. There's a law that says that there's a limit law that says that if something heads towards a number and this thing here heads towards 1, you're going to get DNE. You're going to get does not exist, because if you look at the graph y equals 1 over x, it will look like this. There's a limits law that says that if something heads towards a constant and then this denominator heads towards 0, then one's going to shoot up and the other one's going to shoot down. So there's a law that says that you can 100% conclude that it does not exist if you have something that heads towards a constant and this thing happens to head towards 0. Then you can 100% be sure that the limit does not exist, because one's going to shoot up, one's going to shoot down. Well, if you look at our case here, this is 1, this is 1, and then you plus, this is 1, and then as x heads towards pi over 2, this thing here heads towards 0. So here we've got this scenario here where you've got 2 over 0. You see, this is a constant that is heading towards 0, a constant, and then the denominator happens to be heading towards 0. So you can 100% sure that it's going to be DNE. So that basically there's a limit law that says that if something heads towards a constant and the denominator happens to head towards 0, then you can be 100% sure that the limit will be DNE, does not exist. Okay, and if you get a graph plotter and plot this, so plot our graph, which is this thing here, and then pi over 2 is this green line here. So as you can see, as x heads towards pi over 2, this is going to shoot up, and then if you approach it from the right hand side, it's going to shoot down. So the limit does not exist. So the answer here is does not exist. And just remember, very important, always check for these two when it comes to limits. Okay, so the answer is does not exist. So the answer is does not exist.